Uh-huh. There you go. Well, we're not going to wait on them. When this clicker goes from 2:59 to 3 o'clock, my 24 minutes start, and I intend on taking advantage of every single one of those 24 minutes. Having spent most of my life searching for audience and not getting it, handing out press releases for press conferences that reporters did not show up to, and leaflets for demonstrations that people did not show up to for a long time. Having audience is really beautiful, and I treasure each and every single one of you, and thank you for your attention. And so, yes, we are at the 3 o'clock mark, and so I'm going to talk about this little presentation that I just put it together. I haven't run through it even once with anybody yet. So we're all going to kind of learn it together, and it's Steve's crystal ball. Jim asked me to take a look into the future about 5 years down the road and think about what we might be seeing. And crystal balls are these really high-risk ventures, right? Because you're almost always going to be wrong about something. But high-risk situations have never deterred me before, and I'm not going to allow it to deter me this time. So we can all get together next year, and I welcome the opportunity for you all to tell me how wrong I was about some of this stuff, and hopefully right about some of it too, right? So I'm going to break down, most of the presentation is going to be talking about stuff that I think will happen. I'm reasonably certain that these are the things that are going to happen. At the end, I'm going to touch on what may be the most important part of the presentation, according to my mind and my heart, right? And talk about what could happen, right? What could happen, but is only going to happen if we make it happen, right? So before I get into the future, I'm going to take a little look at the past, right? Because if you don't know your past, you don't know your future. So the interesting thing about this industry is that it sprang out of a movement for social justice. And a lot of people think that this is an industry that has just come to light in the last few years. It took 50+ years of struggle for us to get to this point. It was not easy, and it involved a great deal of sacrifice. The locus of a lot of that sacrifice and a lot of that struggle was here in the Bay Area. And I'll just briefly mention the name of Dennis Perone. You see up there, we're talking about the AIDS crisis that devastated San Francisco. Dennis, Vietnam vet, gay man, cannabis dealer, proud cannabis dealer. AIDS crisis starts devastating San Francisco, and we noticed that our friends who were consuming cannabis and had AIDS, who were living with AIDS, were living longer and having a higher quality of life than our friends who weren't consuming cannabis. And once that became clear, Dennis made it his mission to make sure that every single AIDS patient in the city of San Francisco got the medicine that they needed. And he was busted multiple times. On one of those busts, the cops shot him in his butt as he was trying to flee from them going up a stairway, okay? They could very easily have killed him. Dennis passed just a few months ago, but he dedicated his whole life to bringing this day about. And he wasn't the only one. I can talk about my friend Jack Hara. I can talk about my friend Brownie Mary. I can talk about my friend Wayne Justman, who's back there, who's been on this road for a long time, too. I can, you know, they're all of us. We've been on this road a long time. It's important to remember that, right? A lot of people are making a lot of money off of this thing now. And we want to remember the roots that we came from. And I'll tell you why this is going to be important a little further in the presentation, right? So today, that was tomorrow, yesterday, right? Today we're seeing this immense amount of disruption in the state of California. For 20 years, we had a semi-regulated, kind of sort of gray market, locally regulated medical cannabis system that was very free and very open, and it worked really well. It got people the medicine that they wanted. It got it to them safely. It got it to them at reasonable prices. With the onset of regulation and moving to an adult use market, we've seen a vast amount of disruption in that system. You can see there's some of the issues that we've seen, right? Just to give you a sense of the magnitude of it, pre-1/1, Harborside had about 800 small growers that we dealt with. Post-1/1, five of those small growers had licenses. 5. Okay. So by the same token, right, if you took a look at the number of dispensaries that were licensed in the state of California pre-11, it was close to 2,000 locally licensed medical cannabis dispensaries. Today, there's only about 500 state-licensed dispensaries statewide. So a vast amount of disruption. And the sad thing about this disruption is that it has squeezed and it has hurt the people who sacrificed the most in order to bring us here. And there are families who have been dedicated to this work literally for generations, who are losing their farms, who are unable to pay their mortgages, who can't send their kids to school. And it breaks my heart, right? People ask me, what do you think about California today? I call it the agony and the ecstasy. This is the agony part. So tomorrow, what's tomorrow going to look like? The good news is this disruption is going to work itself out. It's going to be a painful change. It is a painful change for an awful lot of people, right? But important to remember is that as big as California is, today California is the largest legal market for cannabis in the world, and only around half of our jurisdictions even allow legal cannabis activities. So over the years, more and more jurisdictions are going to be opting in, and this market, the largest market in the world for cannabis, largest legal market in the world for cannabis, is again going to grow even larger. The environment here, the political environment for that kind of growth is going to get a really big boost when our good friend Gavin Newsom is elected governor of California, and that we expect to happen very soon. We're looking forward to that. And that combination of working out the industry and the kind of political support that we're going to get from Governor Newsom are going to position California's cannabis industry to claim its real destiny. I'll get to that real destiny a little later in the presentation. Right? Meanwhile, in states around the country, we're going to continue to see progress at the state level. The few states in this country that have not already reformed their cannabis laws are going to do so. Right? Yes, even Mississippi and Alabama, it's going to happen, I promise you. Watch. And the states that have already taken steps towards reform, as they see those reforms panning out in very positive ways with no real downsides, no measurable downsides whatsoever, they are going to expand the range of their laws. Medical will move to adult use. Adult use will become less restrictive. We'll start seeing more on-premises consumption allowed as the social use, the public use of cannabis becomes more normalized. And we're looking ahead to the day when there's going to be some really interesting new sales channels for cannabis products that we've never really been able to contemplate before. So imagine going down to the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco, and instead of getting a glass of wine with your little meal in their very lovely restaurant down there, right, you get a nice cannabis mint, right? Those artworks are going to take on a whole nother layer of meaning after that, right? So these things are coming into our future. The day will come when you can receive a package of cannabis right along with all of your other orders from Amazon. This is going to happen. It is coming. So this activity at the state level is already driving political change at the federal level, right? And it's my belief that the States Act, everybody know what the States Act is? Okay, the States Act says that the federal government must respect state cannabis laws, whether they're adult use laws or whether they're medical cannabis laws, right? That act, I believe, is going to pass by 2021, and when it does, more and more states are going to embrace adult use because there will no longer be any conflict with federal law. That conflict with federal law will be resolved, right? We saw just last week that the FDA has approved Epidiolex as a Schedule 5 substance, even though it contains some trace elements of THC, okay? So we have seen a radical rescheduling of cannabis at that level, okay? What does that mean? That means that pharmaceutical companies are now producing cannabis medicines, and they're going to start producing a lot more of them. Epidiolex is just the first of many, 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 many more that are getting ready to come out. Those substances, those new pharmaceutical medicines, are going to be prescribed by healthcare organizations like Kaiser, right? It's going to become normalized. And you'll be able to go to pharmacies like CVS to pick up those prescriptions. This is coming. I think it could be within the next 5 years. So let's talk a little bit about an interstate market, right? Interstate market for cannabis. This will loop back to California's destiny, okay? So with the FDA approvals that we've just seen, we have today in the United States of America a legal interstate market for cannabis. It only has one product in it yet, and that's Epidiolex. But like I said, more are coming. At the same time, the DEA is going to resist descheduling cannabis entirely, right? Because the DEA is the DEA, and that's what they do, and that's what they've always done. I think we can expect them to continue to do it. Descheduling versus rescheduling, everybody know the difference? Anybody not know the difference? Okay, great. So descheduling means taking cannabis out of the Controlled Substances Act entirely. It doesn't belong there, never belonged there, never should have been there, get it the hell out, right? Rescheduling means taking cannabis from its Schedule I category, high potential for abuse, no medical use, and scaling it down to 2, 3, 4, or 5. And I just mentioned Epidiolex, it was rescheduled to 5. So as long as the DEA successfully resists descheduling cannabis entirely, we are not going to have an adult use interstate market that's sanctioned by the federal government, right? But it's my belief that there's a little known body of law called interstate compacts. And these interstate compacts allow states to reach mutual agreements without the involvement of the federal government about the administration of criminal law. And it's my belief that the interstate compacts may offer an opportunity to contiguous cannabis states to come together into a common market. Right? So hopefully we see that coming forward in the pretty near future too. Whatever happens between now and 2022, right, we know that cannabis is going to be an issue in the presidential election, a very serious issue. States like Florida, states like Colorado are going to be at play and are going to turn on this issue. So get ready for 2022 because it's going to be the time that we really flex our political muscles and take this thing home. When we do that, when we create a national, descheduled, interstate market for cannabis, California is going to claim 50% of that market. Right? Why? California has the ideal microclimates for growing cannabis. Right? We have this existing agricultural infrastructure industry that is the most efficient agricultural industry in the world. Nobody can produce fruits or vegetables at a lower cost and a higher quality than California. That's why we own half of the market nationally for fruits and vegetables. We will do the same thing with cannabis. We have the largest concentration of cannabis expertise and the largest concentration of cannabis genetics that can be found anywhere on this planet, right? We've got these amazing research institutes, agricultural research institutes all over the state where guys have been studying stuff like how do you make the leaves on lettuce curl in the other direction, okay? They've been itching to get their hands on cannabis for a long time, and now they got it, okay? And they're going to be doing some real magic, okay? This crop is not going to be the same crop 5 years from now as it is today once California's agricultural industry works its wizardry and works its magic on it. You're going to see something that yields much higher, that fails less frequently, that has far more dialed-in terpene and cannabinoid profiles. We are coming, okay? And then you add to that what I was just talking about. My friend Gavin Newsom, if you're all Californians, please do go out and vote for our new governor, Governor Newsom. That supportive political environment is going to allow us to develop the kind of industry that can really compete at the national level, right? And then we've got these other natural advantages in California, the things that have helped California brands rise to global dominance, like Silicon Valley and like Hollywood. Those same natural advantages are going to come to play with cannabis as well, right? So no doubt in my mind that once we have that interstate market, California is going to be able to produce more compelling brands, better products at a lower price, and regardless of how many companies set up indoor grow rooms all over the United States of America and try to compete with us, they will fail, right? This thing belongs to us, and we're going to go out and we're going to claim it. So another part of what will happen, right, and this starts getting into the meat of what I'm talking about, the really, from my point of view, the really, really important stuff. Reporters come to me now, and they're like, Steve, you were a supporter of Prop 64, and now you've seen your own business and many other people's businesses, people that you love, suffering, being squeezed, in some cases, being driven out of the industry because of it. Was it worth it, Steve? If you had it to do all over again, would you do it all over again? You're goddamn right I would do it all over again, okay? Absolutely I would do it all over again. Because for years and years and decades, we've had millions of Californians who have been arrested, right? We have millions of Californians who have suffered from epilepsy and cancer and other grave illnesses, Alzheimer's, chronic pain, who are not going to be suffering anymore, right? We have families that have been separated and torn apart for generation upon generation, and that is going to stop. It's not going to happen, at least it's not going to happen with cannabis anymore, right? We also know from taking a look at what's happened in states that already made this change, the states that already approved adult use, what happens? Pharma sales, down. Alcohol sales, down. Binge drinking, down. Youth suicide, down. Domestic violence, down. Opioid overdoses, down 25%. Was it worth it? Yes, it was worth it. Absolutely it was worth it. I wouldn't go backwards for anything. So those are all the things that will happen. Here's a few other things that will happen, right? It's already happening. Fortunes are being made in this industry, right? Hundreds of thousands of jobs are being created. There's more people working in the cannabis industry today than there are coal miners in the United States of America, and we are growing way more rapidly than coal is, okay? So that's going to keep on going. We're going to build thousands of more companies, and we're going to generate billions and billions of dollars in tax revenue. That all will happen almost on autopilot no matter what we do. But here's what could happen, right? And in my opinion, it's the most valuable opportunity that is in front of us. All right? What could happen if we take the teachings of cannabis seriously, right? The way cannabis teaches us to be open-minded, to be tolerant of other people, to respect nature, to appreciate the gifts that it gives us, to be tolerant, to work out our differences in peaceful ways, right? We have to take those lessons. We have the opportunity to take those lessons and take them seriously. Don't write off your heightened appreciation of nature as just being high, right? Don't write off your ability to solve a long simmering argument with a smile and a hug and a few words down to just being high. Take those lessons seriously, and let's incorporate those lessons into this thing that we are building together, right? Let's embrace, really heartily embrace diversity, right? Because we know that diversity makes us stronger. It allows us to make better decisions. It allows us to carry our visions through in a better way. It allows us to carry this news to more people in a more effective way. So let's make sure that we embrace diversity. This is something that cannabis teaches. Let's take it seriously, right? Let's understand that sustainability isn't an option. It's not optional. In this industry, sustainability should be a basic threshold issue. If you're not doing it sustainably, then you should not do it. Right? Make sure that we share, right? When you're sitting around in a circle and you're passing a joint, or you're standing around and somebody comes up to the edge of that circle, even if it's somebody that you don't know, right? We don't all like huddle in, and push them out, right? What do? We very naturally open the circle and we share, right? So let's bring that spirit of generosity and that spirit of fairness and that spirit of sharing into our economic models and make absolutely sure that everybody who creates value in this industry, every single person, is richly, fairly, generously rewarded for pouring their life's energy into this thing that we're doing, okay? And let's make sure, and this gets back, like I promised you, that eventually we get back to the history, right? We can't forget that history. We can't forget where that history came from. We can't forget the victims of that history. We can't forget that as much progress as we have made here in California and around the United States, most of the world is still suffering through the darkness of prohibition, right? So we have to remember that. We have to address the historic wrongs. We have to make sure that people of color are included in this industry as we build it forward. We have to make sure that we don't forget all of the people who have been hurt by prohibition. We need to try and repair those harms that have been done to them, and we need to make absolutely certain that we never stop, that we never rest, that we never even think about stopping or resting until the very last cannabis prisoner is free. Wherever they are in this world, whatever hemisphere they live in, whatever continent they are on, right? We need to let them know that we are coming, right? Wherever that last cannabis prisoner is, know we are coming and we will not stop until we reach you. 3 minutes for questions. Yes?
I'd love your perspective on just like the big corporate entities that are making noises about getting in the industry, like Coca-Cola and others, and what impact that might have on all this.
Well, we already know that huge corporate entities are getting in. Constellation Brands has made massive, massive investments into the industry, $250 million investment into the industry. So that already is happening. What I believe is this, that the most important work that we have is to make sure that this plant gets into the hands of everybody around the world that can use it, that can benefit from it. And much as I love my brothers and sisters in the Emerald Triangle and all throughout the state of California, all across this nation, right? My hippie brothers and sisters, okay? My underground brothers and sisters, my outlaw brothers and sisters, okay? Those of us who have lived on the margin and carried this torch through the darkness all of these years, there's not enough of us. There's not enough of us to carry this thing all around the world. And that is a work that's the most important thing, right? If we really want to see that happen, if we really want the plant to get into everybody's hands, we need to engage the same mechanisms of global commerce that run every other consumer good on our planet, right? So we need to do that. The important thing is that as we do that, we think about this new kind of industry and make sure that we cannibalize those corporations more than those corporations corporatize cannabis. I think that's my time. Thank you so much. Yep, I did it.